The Neo Forza Faye is a new DDR4 RAM kit offered by the new company. The Faye is a middle-of-the-road model with a design that is more on the elegant side than on the gaming RGB super extreme side of the spectrum. The kit featured in this review has a total capacity of 32GB and it is running at 3600MHz with a cast latency of CL18. This kit and this series has received a warm welcome not only because of their specifications but because of their competitive pricing. Speaking of pricing, a 32GB kit running at 3600MHz can be bought right now for around $100 US, but don't quote me on this as at this time this exact RAM kit is on a discount, so your price might vary. The Faye has a good design. The heatsink is painted in a standard matte black finish and features chromed inserts. Speaking of which, the highlight of this RAM kit in terms of the design are these wing-like lines placed on both sides of the heatsink. These are not painted on but rather glued onto the heatsink. They have a high reflective texture and create a good contrast with the matte black finish of the rest of the RAM stick. The center of the heatsink has the Neo Forza logo in all of its glory. It has a good finish and should last you a long time. What you can see on this RAM kit is in fact that it's not outrageous in terms of looks. No RGB, no silly shapes and especially no plastics being used. In terms of the size, the Faye has a height of just 42.5mm, which is not that tall but can't be called low profile either. It's right in the middle, which makes these RAM kits compatible with most Air CPU coolers available on the market right now. However, your mileage might vary in this case, so do your research beforehand. Removing the heatsink is easy because there isn't much holding it together anyway. You just pry the heatsink apart and it will remove itself from the RAM module. The only thing keeping the heatsink together are two self-adhesive thermal strips. And with the heatsink removed, it's easy to notice that the Faye is one of those things where the idea that the inside is what matters stands true, as this RAM kit has a dual-side PCB design. This means that the memory chips are installed on both sides of the RAM module. This is the case for many RAM kits that have a higher capacity, as it's cheaper to use more memory chips that have a lower individual storage capacity than to use fewer memory chips but with a higher individual capacity. The memory chips used on this kit are made by Hynix and are the same one used on many more expensive RAM kits. These have an XMP profile of 3600MHz with the timings 18, 19, 19, 39. With this kit installed, it's what we can expect looks-wise. These RAM modules just blend in and you barely see them. I like that, because so far everything points towards the idea that Neo Forza focused on the build quality and the performance instead of the design, which is a rare thing these days. The testing of all RAM kits, unless otherwise stated, is done with an Intel i9 9900K CPU, an RTX 2070 Super graphics cards, and a Z390 ASRock motherboard. And when we talk about overclocking, yeah, that's a no-go on my system. And here's why. You see, we are talking about a 32GB kit which is running at 3600MHz. The higher the capacity of the RAM kit is, the harder it is to overclock it past its factory XMP profile. If this would have been a 16GB kit, or in other words just two 8GB RAM sticks, overclocking wouldn't have been an issue at all. While you might have a better chance than me, especially those using a newer AMD platform, my Z390 motherboard paired with an i9 9900K CPU could not overclock this RAM kit past its factory frequency and timings, no matter what voltages I used and how looser the timings got. Moving on from this, the kit should start by default at its XMP frequency of 3600MHz. However, in many cases it will start at its lowest frequency, which is 2133MHz. To change this, simply head into your motherboard's BIOS and into the advanced settings and then enable the XMP profile. Afterwards, save your settings and exit the BIOS. The first test uses a video game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is running at 1080p and at maximum settings, with vertical synchronization disabled and pure hair set to low. And in this test, the Neo Forza Faye 32GB running at 3600MHz, is on the 4th position in the graph, right below the good RAM IRDM-X and ahead of the Ballistics Gaming Black 32GB. A good result, however, it was to be expected as the specifications of these RAM kits are good from the factory. The second benchmark uses the AIDA64 memory test. This is used because it not only delivers a consistent result, but it is very easy to use by even the most casuals of users, and it does not require a complex installation. In this test, the Neo Forza Faye is on the 4th place, behind the Ballistics Gaming RGB and ahead of the good RAM IRDM Pro. We continue with AIDA64 latency benchmark, and this one is very easy to understand as it just measures the latency of the installed memory. Here, the Faye is on the 3rd position with a latency of around 42.2 nanoseconds. The next test features the well-known Cinebench R15 benchmark. While this is a CPU-heavy test, it is heavily influenced by the performance of the installed RAM, thus why it's being used in many RAM kit reviews. And in this test, the Faye 32GB reached a maximum CPU score of 2084 and a maximum GPU score of 194. This result places the Faye next to models such as the good RAM IRDM Pro or the crucial Ballistics Max DDR4. And the final test is Super P, a popular benchmark used to test overclocked CPUs, but again, just like Cinebench, its score is influenced by the performance of the installed RAM, and here the RAM kit reached a score of 424.4 seconds, placing the Faye on the 4th position again. The Neo Forza Faye DDR4 3600MHz 32GB is one of those rare kits that offers a raw performance without any bling or strings attached. The highlight of this kit is the competitive pricing and the performance. It might not be the best kit out there, but for under $150, give or take, is certainly a great choice, especially for a gaming system. The overclocking headroom will vary depending on your system, and that's the best way I can say this. Perhaps someone running a brand new AM4 platform will get much more out of these kits, but in my case, it was not possible. Another way to look at this is that this RAM kit is already running at its best performance from the factory, which is good, especially for those that do not want to get into overclocking. The build quality is good and the component used to make everything work are of high quality. We're talking after all about Hynix memory chips placed on both sides of the PCB. The best way to describe the Faye is as a good RAM kit that will work out of the box, without any fancy features that are usually bumping up the pricing of a RAM kit. If you want RGB and fancy graphics, this might not be for you. However, if you want a simple RAM kit that will perform as promised, then the Faye can deliver just that. If you like this review, then you might consider subscribing for more, and if you want to support me in a direct way, then in the description below you will find the links for both the Patreon and the Subscriber pages of this channel.